Good morning and thank you so much for joining us on Africa This Morning. It is the 27th of March 2014. Let's start the bulletin with a look at the top stories.
Epilepsy in Kenya. Kenya launches new guidelines for the management of epilepsy. Sierra Leone Ebola updates. Sierra Leone is investigating 2 suspected cases of the Ebola virus. US mudslide updates. Death toll from devastating weekend landslide rises to 24.
I think we all expect them to put every effort in trying to find as much of the plane as possible and finding the evidence in the black box, so to speak.
Missing Malaysia Airlines plane vigil. Church vigil held for the 239 people on board flight MH370.
Kenya has launched new guidelines for the management of epilepsy. The rules will guide health workers in the treatment of the condition, as well as help people with epilepsy and their families achieve the highest standard of healthcare.
Epileptic patients have for years continued to face stigma from the society. The condition is still shrouded in myths and misconceptions that expose those living with it to discrimination. This challenge is further compounded by an existing treatment gap that has left 80% of Kenyans suffering from epilepsy without access to affordable health care. With the new guidelines launched Wednesday, health workers will have basic foundations to follow when diagnosing and planning treatment for persons living with epilepsy.
I will find a different treatment in the next clinic, and there will be no continuity. Epilepsy, as we understand, is a chronic condition, and therefore there has to be a continuum of care. But this was not there because there was no guiding document to help health workers make informed decisions and also provide a standardized way of care.
Some of the people living with the condition shared the epileptic experience and confirmed that it is indeed manageable.
And today is Purple Day, and it's a day designed to raise awareness on epilepsy and get people talking about it, hence dispelling the myths that surround the illness and informing those like me that we are not alone. And today I've felt that I'm not alone. Contrary to popular belief, epilepsy is not a death sentence. It's not something that prevents one from dreaming and aiming high.
But even if it were to change and we double that figure...
Global figures indicate that around 50 million people worldwide have epilepsy, and 80% of these are found in developing regions, where 70% of the cases respond well to treatment and can be controlled.
Epidemiological global figures indicate that around 50 million people worldwide have epilepsy, and 80% of these are found in developing countries like ours. The good thing is that 70% of epilepsy cases can respond well to treatment and can be controlled, but unfortunately, as it was said by previous speakers, yet the majority of affected people do not have the treatment they need.
Lack of information on epilepsy, poor attitude, cultural beliefs, poverty, illiteracy and limited health care are some of the challenges facing the Kenyan government as it improves epilepsy care in the country.
Still on health, but this time in West Africa, Sierra Leone is investigating 2 suspected cases of Ebola virus as neighboring Guinea struggles to contain an outbreak of the deadly virus. West Africa has been on high alert since the outbreak of the killer virus in Guinea.
Sierra Leone's Chief Medical Officer, Brima Gabo, said authorities were investigating the case of a 14-year-old boy who was buried in a Sierra Leonean village after he apparently died across the border in Guinea 2 weeks ago. Also being investigated is a patient in the northern border district of Cambia. The boy had traveled to Guinea to attend the funeral of one of the outbreak's early victims. Gabo said a medical team had been sent to test those who came into contact with the boy before his death. Ebola is spread by close contact. It kills between 25% and 90% of victims, depending on the strain of the virus. There is no known cure or vaccine. Meanwhile, Guinea has banned the sale and consumption of bats to prevent the spread of the deadly Ebola virus. Bats, a local delicacy, appeared to be the main agents for the Ebola outbreak in the south. 62 people have now been killed by the virus in Guinea.
Back to Kenya, following a wave of terrorism attacks targeting places of worship, a section of church leaders in Kenya are demanding direct security and protection from the state. The demand comes days after gunmen stormed in a church in Likoni, Mombasa County, killing 6 people, injuring several others, and leaving a 1-year-old boy with a bullet lodged in his head. Ebru Africa's Sam Gakunyi reports.
3 days after 6 people died in a heinous attack by terrorists at the Joy in Jesus Church in the coastal town of Mombasa, the umbrella body of churches of Kenya is concerned about the security situation in the country. They are calling on the government to bring those responsible to justice.
We urge the government to take quick and firm action against the perpetrators of these heinous acts. There must be speedy investigations leading to prosecution and punishment of the individuals who attack people and destroy properties of churches.
The leaders, aware of the dangers the clergies are being subjected to following the attacks, are calling on the government to protect them.
In the meantime, we urge that clergy in very exposed areas and who are well known to the attackers be provided with direct security. This is because the threat against them is real, and it will be tragic if any more of them should lose their lives.
The country is not only facing security challenges. Lately, there has been a debate on the escalating wage bill and how it can be reduced. Scrapping some positions as proposed by a section of leaders is not the way to go.
While in principle it may be okay to amend the constitution, that must be done through a participatory and people-driven process where all Kenyans agree how they would amend it to meet needs that are well articulated.
The council is also urging the president not to sign the marriage bill into law, saying it discriminates against women. The message by the National Council of Churches of Kenya to the government is, quote-unquote, shift from rhetoric to action. This comes barely hours to the president's State of the Nation address tomorrow. Sam Gakunyi, Ebru Africa News, Nairobi, Kenya.
From security matters to education, teaching in Kenya is set to improve significantly following the introduction of tablets equipped with instructional and supervision aids. The 1,100 tablets will be distributed to tutors from the Teachers Advisory Center.
The tablets have several programs that would help improve learning in primary schools and provide data on the teachers' attendance and pupils' performances. Among the softwares are instructional videos used by the Advisory Center tutors to give the teachers feedback, which will help them improve in their teaching. Letter sounds in both Swahili and English have also been put together for reference for both the tutors and the teachers. This, according to Education Cabinet Secretary Jacob Kaimenyi, will make learning easier for children.
Our key objective is to ensure that, yes, teaching and learning become fun. It's something that people love. They don't see it as a problem, so to speak. It is in recognition of this potential that the Jubilee government is undertaking deliberate measures to integrate ICT into the curriculum as a reform agenda.
So far, the tutors from 7 counties have been trained and will work in at least 1,300 schools across the country. 5,000 teachers are being trained on how to use the tablets.
Funga. Fungua.
Kaimenyi assured that the government will cooperate with stakeholders in the quest to prepare children for the global market.
At this juncture, I wish to reiterate my ministry's unwavering commitment to leverage on the potential of technology to achieve desired education transformation and usher in the Kenyan children into the global arena of the knowledge society.
Education Officer Lea Rotich said capacity building in the education sector is important as we struggle to improve the quality of education in the rural areas.
That now that we are bringing in the county directors of education and the TSC county directors, we also need to support, to facilitate, to capacity build the field officers, the other field officers like the district education officers and the district quality assurance and standards officers. Those are very key people. And for the work, they are the ones who generally supervise also the TAC tutors.
Well, revolutionizing education into the digital platform might seem like a far-fetched dream, but the quest still continues. This comes even after the much-anticipated laptop project was halted over irregularities in the tendering process. For Ebru Africa TV, I am Annette Akisa in Nairobi.
Ethiopia is making progress on the construction of its Grand Renaissance Dam project on the Nile River. The Horn of Africa country began diverting the Blue Nile in May 2013 to build the 6,000 megawatt dam, which will be Africa's largest when completed in 2017. Water ministers from Egypt, Ethiopia and Sudan on Monday successfully held talks on an Ethiopian dam project after Egypt's objections delayed formation of a committee to implement expert advice. Cairo fears the Grand Renaissance Dam project could diminish its water supply.
This project will equally benefit the downstream countries as it will benefit Ethiopia, equally, 50-50. So 100% will be benefited, and at the same time the downstream countries will be also benefited. How? It will be used as a flood protection structure. We are building this dam on Abai River to generate electricity.
At a meeting in Khartoum last month, ministers from the three nations failed to agree on the composition of the committee, which would follow through on the expert recommendations about the Grand Renaissance Dam project.
A regulated flow throughout the year, there will not be any water that will be unnecessarily spilled over the spillway of the dam already constructed on the downstream side of the Grand Renaissance Dam project. The studies already carried out in the Sudan by making a regulated flow without building any hydroelectric dams.
Ethiopia began diverting the Blue Nile in May to build the 6,000 megawatt dam, which will be Africa's largest when completed in 2017. Egypt believes its historical rights to the Nile are guaranteed by two treaties from 1929 and 1959, which allow it 87% of the Nile's flow and give it veto power over upstream projects. But a new deal signed in 2010 by other Nile Basin countries, including Ethiopia, allows them to work on river projects without Cairo's prior agreement. Both Sudan and Egypt have not signed the new Nile Basin deal. Sudan, like Egypt, relies on Nile resources, but it has said it does not expect to be affected by the Grand Renaissance Dam project. On Wednesday, Sudan and Ethiopia inaugurated a cross-border electricity link, which an analyst said aims to strengthen Khartoum and Addis Ababa ties after tensions with Egypt over the dam project. Search efforts for the missing Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 have resumed following improved weather conditions. 6 countries, Australia, New Zealand, the United States, Japan, China and South Korea, are sending aircrafts and ships to the search ocean area where a further 122 objects, potentially from the missing plane, have been identified.
Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott says authorities are doing everything possible to search for the missing Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. He also said Australia was ready to assist the families of the missing passengers in any possible way. Australia has been coordinating the multinational search that is now focused on a remote area of the ocean, some 1,500 miles to the southwest of the Australian city of Perth.
Lord is my shepherd.
Meanwhile, a church vigil for the 239 people on board flight MH370 was held yesterday in Kuala Lumpur, a day after Prime Minister Najib Razak's announcement that the flight had ended in the southern Indian Ocean. People all over the world had held out hope for as long as possible and given moral support to the families of the missing passengers. But now that hope has turned to grief and sorrow, people of all colors and religions showed their support in Kuala Lumpur, capital of Malaysia, for the heartbroken relatives and friends.
I feel that and many churches around the country, I'm sure, are keeping vigil and encouraging people to just pray, for that's all we can do.
Prime Minister Razak has proposed to fly Malaysia's flags at half-mast in the capital in memory of those on board flight MH370, but only if and when there is any physical evidence of the aircraft.
20 Joe's on the nose.
Certainly committed to keep on looking for the wreckage, and I think we all expect them to put every effort in trying to find as much of the plane as possible and finding the evidence in the black box, so to speak.
Experts say that even if debris is found, it could be months or years before the plane itself and its flight recorders are recovered.
And to the United States, the death toll from the devastating weekend landslide in Washington state has risen to 24 after rescue workers recovered 2 bodies and are believed to have located 8 more. The discovery of additional victims came as crews searched under drizzly skies for survivors amid fading hopes that anyone could be plucked alive from the massive pile of muck and debris. As many as 176 people remained listed as missing 3 days after a rain-soaked landslide collapsed on Saturday, tumbling over a river, across a state road and into a rural residential area where it swallowed dozens of houses near the town of Ooro.
We recovered 2 fatalities today, and so that would bring the fatality rate to 16. We believe we've located another 8. So we're gonna stick with the number of 16 right now until those others are located and brought back to the medical examiner.
But the disaster already ranks as one of the deadliest landslides in recent U.S. history. In 2005, 10 people died when a hillside gave way and engulfed homes in La Conchita, California. Though authorities have said the chances are low of finding any more survivors in the cement-like mud blanketing the landscape, Hort said some 50 more searchers have been brought in to sift through the disaster zone in hopes of a miracle.
I consider it still a rescue operation. Absolutely, it's a rescue and a recovery operation. We haven't lost hope that there's a possibility that that we could find somebody alive in some pocket area. As the days go on and we haven't seen any loss of life, we are coming to the realization that that may not be a possibility, but we are going full steam ahead.
Compounding the sense of urgency was a sense of fear of flooding as the water levels rose behind the crude dam of mud and rubble that was dumped in the North Fork of Stilaguamish River by the slide. Meanwhile, a 22-week-old baby who was hurt in the landslide remained in critical condition in Harborview Medical Center in Seattle after being taken there by helicopter along with his mother, who was also hurt. The landslide was not the first to hit an inhabited area in Washington state. More than 100 houses were destroyed by a slow-moving landslide in the town of Kelso in the late 90s. And finally, Crimea's Tatar ethnic minority is holding a referendum to decide if they want to be part of Ukraine or Russia following Moscow's seizure of the Black Sea Peninsula.
Tatars in Crimea weigh their future. Now the head of Tatars' main assembly is saying they are considering holding their own referendum to decide whether to be part of Ukraine or Russia.
If we acknowledge that the referendum is the mechanism for others to determine what they want, and it is the main tool for this, then we will search for possibilities of holding our own referendum.
Any such vote would be a challenge to Russian President Vladimir Putin, who last week signed documents formally incorporating Crimea into Russia.
Значение Севастополя.
The Crimean Tatars will have to determine where, on their land, they see their future.
Repeatedly referring to Ukraine as, quote, our country, he left no doubt about his own feelings over Russia's annexation of Crimea, a move unrecognized and condemned by Kiev and the West, which reacted by introducing sanctions on Moscow. The Tatars were nearly wiped out on Moscow's orders, first by the Tsars and then by the Soviets.
And with that, we come to the end of the Bulletin on Africa this morning. Join us next as we take a look at the leading conversations on the social media platform on our segment on Trend.